Okay, when I plugged in my spare battery, it only has 13 minutes left, so I did some zip tying of stuff out of the way off camera. The fan connections I zip tied to the spreader bar. I told you I'd remember it. And now I'm getting ready to connect some of the stuff from the fuel injection to where it needs to go. There's a 2-pin connector here that goes down to the temperature sensor in the head. And that clicked on nicely. Now, I pulled up the connector for the oxygen sensor. And it goes to this wire over here, which comes out of the fuel injection unit right here, which is like the connector for the oxygen sensor is 6 inches too long at that point. But I have to figure out how to hide, I don't know, at least 3.5 feet of wire, because I don't want to go cutting and splicing all this. Probably guess I'm gonna have to just kind of coil it up and zip tie it like you would an extension cord, because it is absurd how much excess cabling they give you. And there goes my box of zip ties. Good grief. There is no neat way to do this. For the life of me, I can't figure out why they wouldn't just make shorter shorter cables to connect with, and then extensions if you need them. I'm going to do this off camera because it's going to take a while just to figure out the neatest way that I can run it. And there's no need to waste your time or my battery power showing you frustration. So the last hour or so was spent just putting cables in sheaths and wire looms and deciding how I could neaten up the wiring mess with all of that excess wiring. So this is how it's going to look when it's done. I just have the air cleaner set on there, but I'll show you what I have done so far, because this is not complete due to the fact that I don't have the distributor in. So I think I finally figured out what that horrible sound is that happens around this time every day. I think it's the school bus. I'm glad my kids are grown and they don't have to ride that thing. At any rate, back to the fuel injection and all the wiring. See if I can tighten in on that a little bit. So there were basically 6 cables coming out of the fuel injection, out of the Snyper. Over here you had 3. One went to the 7-pin connector that goes to, I guess, the main wiring harness. And then 2 others came off here. One was the 3-foot long lead that was to connect to the oxygen sensor. The other was a 2-pin lead that went to the temperature sensor in the head, right down there. So I put those in a sheath. That's the temperature sensor and the oxygen sensor. The 7-pin, I just made a little loop here and it connected to the 7-pin connector here, so that's not too bad. But for that, and the one coming out of for the oxygen sensor, not the oxygen sensor, the temperature sensor. I'm sorry, that's the wrong one, I'm telling you. What one was that? The 7-pin for sure. Okay, it was the 10. The 7-pin came out up there. The 10-pin comes out here also, and the oxygen sensor comes out here. So I put this loom on. I ran the oxygen sensor in the 10-pin connector all the way up to the 10-pin connector in that loom. And then I took that oxygen sensor one and I ran it back into this loom and ran it up here, and it comes out. And I better check to make sure that it's in the frame. It basically comes out here and goes around the heater hose and connects to the oxygen sensor connector here, which the oxygen sensor cable comes from the oxygen sensor down on the header, up behind the block, and just runs across here. So that is kind of hidden. The other thing that went in here, the other 2 wires that went in here coming out of the Snyper, because remember the oxygen sensor comes out, does a loop, and goes back in that sheath and connects there. The other 2 coming out of the Snyper are for the temperature sensor, which is, as I pointed before, right down there. And the other one is that if you've been following along, the throttle position sensor, that cable that they gave originally, and I've looped that up back here. It had the wrong connector on it. It wasn't going to work with this setup because it didn't connect to the Snyper. And that was for the throttle position sensor and maybe the distributor on through there, the RPMs. So they gave me a new sensor before I had that connected here. And I was able to run the throttle position sensor, which also has the tach signal in behind the head. And let's see, make sure I'm battery's going dead again. Let me change it out with the one I've been charging. Okay, I've backed off that a little bit. Originally, the throttle position sensor cable that goes to the transmission from the Snyper came up about here, and I had it connected I'm sorry, no, that's the cable that goes to the handheld controller in there that came from the inside up here. And I had it connected to a wire that comes out of here. Well, the throttle position sensor cable that they gave me doesn't work with this because the pins were wrong. So I contacted the transmission manufacturer. They sent me another cable that comes off of the throttle position sensor here, connects to the handheld, and has a 2-pin connector for the tach signal that goes to the controller. So that one was again a mile long. So I have put that up under the fender here and routed it back, and the connector is now right down here. This is the one that was connected to the handheld right there. That gets hidden. So instead of having a ton of wires loose in the engine compartment, I've at least got it down to some wire looms, and it looks a lot neater than it would be with all those wires just all over the place. Now I do have 2 more connectors that need to be connected. They connect the distributor, but I don't think there's any difficulty with that. I had those connected before, and I think it's just a matter of reconnecting them. So down in here is the mess of wires that go to the controller for the Snyper and the transmission. The red one's the transmission. And this bunch of wires here that's all coiled up, that's the one that had the incorrect connector for the throttle position sensor. So they told me that if I wanted to, I could cut that off, but I don't know if I would ever, if something happened to this car and the transmission was still good, maybe I'd want to put it in something else. So I just coiled them up and put them under the fender there. But as far as all the stuff here, instead of having, like I said, 6 wires, I've only got a few. And it looks neater than what it did. So that's it for today. It's getting late. I'll see you next time.